Episode 16 of Shangri-La Frontier blew my mind, just with how good it was. The fact that they're not rushing through this all-powerful boss fight. You can't have these bosses in a game that are considered undefeatable. Throw in a party of 12, and that party of 12, even if they get to round 3, they're gonna lose to phase 3. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, right? So the fact that they actually make it feel as deadly, as creative, as it absolutely should be, but most importantly, continues to make us gamers feel like, yep, I see this. I see how we play these types of video games, because even though video games don't have this level of immersion, because obviously we're not going around physically feeling it, the objects in this world, the same way these characters can in their VR. But I think the most easy comparison I can do is any of the Soulsborne games, whether that's a Dark Souls, a Demon's Souls, a Bloodborne, a Lies of P, right? There isn't a one way or a one situation that you can go about any boss fight, right? Like, there's so many different builds, there's so many different ways to do things, right? And hell, there's even ways to cheese those things. Like, in Sekiro, you can cheese so much shit in terms of getting around this. And a game that's all about glitches and finding exploits, doing things different, it's all about making sure these characters feel like their individual playstyles could overcome it if they're able to adjust and learn enough. And all the preparation they did, the beautiful production, the amount of times they died, the fact that they had 27 revival items in that area, they had 12 full heals and then the rest were half or partial heals, but they spent a fortune. It was close to 50 million or something just for the revival things, and then you add in the amount she used for the points to give them a 100 luck, 100, it was so insane, but this is what should happen, and the more I think about it, the more entering phase 3 with next week's episode, the more blown away I am. I have a full live reaction to today's wonderful Shangri-La episode over on my Patreon, so if you would like to see my full and good thoughts, they're over there if you're interested. I think this show has quickly become one of, the hidden gems for me over the past couple of anime seasons. Every time I think, okay, we're finally going to approach a point where I'm okay, it's not as good as I've been hyping up, it refuses to back down. If anything, it's gotten better. This is a show that I already want a season 2 of. It's already a show I want to see get a full adaptation, because there really isn't a video game anime that goes as hard as this. There are some great ones, and there are some great ones that I've talked about on this channel, such as The King's Avatar, Bofuri. There are some really good ones, but Shangri-La takes it to the next level, because they don't trap these characters in the video game. They don't make it into this situation where, if you die in the game, you die. No, it's all about playing a video game and wanting to get the best ending. And for an MMORPG, the best ending is to getting to max level, getting to defeating all the bosses, doing all your quests, getting the perfect build. It's a lot more open-ended, but there's these goals you set. And when you start building these real connections, with NPCs that if they die, they ain't coming back. So, you can argue, well, they're not real, but it's when you play an RPG, Baldur's Gate 3 just won Game of the Year. The amount of characters that can easily die or get screwed over and quest lines are ruined, people be reloading saves for a reason because they don't want that to happen, or restarting playthroughs because they got a bad ending, right? These types of things mean something to gamers, and maybe people can't relate if they're not really into video games that much, and the best way I could probably give an example for anyone who doesn't quite understand that logic is, you probably care about shows, or you care about books, right? Hell, you probably care about anime. And if those characters died, or bad things happened to them, if it's been written in a way that's had you connected, you're gonna feel bad. It's the same way playing a video game. In a lot of ways, it's more intense because you're not just watching something that's being presented to you, you're generally in control in crafting that narrative. So having something as alive as Shangri-La Frontier's game, it really makes us feel like, even if there's no sense of death, losing their accomplishments, losing this progress. This is like watching your favorite sports team be one goal away from winning the big tournament, whether that's the Super Bowl, whether that's the Stanley Cup, doesn't matter, and they fumble it. If they fumble this boss fight here, the amount of defeat they're going to feel. It's not about the monetary loss. That is pretty insane in terms of I don't even know how long it would take for her to recover financially from everything that she just pushed into this. But it's more about it's insane because all of her knowledge for this is coming from the last time she entered, and she seemingly died with her party on phase 3, where it unleashed this giant roar blast, and obviously that's where we get the idea for holy water, because it's undead, and it kind of covers it in this, I don't know, it kind of looked like an alien busted all over this armored knight, but that's just me. And it worked out. But phase 3 is going to be worse than any of the previous 2 phases where they used half of their recovery items, and honestly there was more than one close calls for at least Sunraku not making it out of this alive. This show is so good, and the animation, the creativity, this is what I mean. Our boy literally straps himself, I mean, yeah, it's a female character model, but it's actually a guy playing, so I'm gonna say he. He straps himself to the horse because he's like holding on for dear life because in round 2 the mount gets summoned. And the genius idea, and it honestly is genius, it's silly as hell, and honestly Pencil's remarks about if that's what you're into, kill me, just ties himself to the horse, because if you can't let me go, it makes sense. An animal trying to get you off of it, it can't touch you, it doesn't have like opposable thumbs and arms that can reach its like nose or anything, but it's just so silly, as the other two are just going absolutely wild. I wasn't sure what that scale was for the longest time. I was like, I guess she's just keeping count of time. No, it's the more you put into the one side, the greater the reward, and she picked the stats, and man, the stats, I assume they're temporary. If they're not temporary, she just gave them one hell of a permanent buff, but even if it is temporary just for this boss fight, it's absolutely needed between the luck and the stamina, because his stamina was coming very close to getting him killed multiple times. And I love the idea of the recovery items, because I thought maybe they'd have 1, if not 3 maximum. Like at the start when she shows each of them having one, I was like, oh, they have 3 recovery items, that's nice. No, like 27 or so is so much more interesting because it allows for him to get absolutely bodied, still have a threat of death because it only has a 10-second window, and you very clearly saw how quickly she almost didn't have enough time to revive Sunraku during that one moment when he's doing his big hand blast attack. It was like right after he stole his sword. It turns out giving him the big ass sword is actually a lot safer than allowing him to go melee combat because his spellcasting be off the charts. It just had that great sense of threat, and you just felt like you were rooting for your favorite sports team. You're rooting for your favorite esports player. You know, it's just, there's such a sense of thrill without going like, oh, if you die in the game, no, it's like, remove that bullshit. It can work, it can, but it's so overplayed, and this is what so many fans want to see. Something like a Shangri-La Frontier, and goddamn is this amazing. I honestly don't know if they will defeat this thing. Normally, I would just say, oh, they're the main characters, they did everything they need to, but it's not guaranteed, because if it's just Phase 3, I'm giving it a slight edge to them, but if there's a Phase 4, they ain't doing it. I don't think there's a Phase 4, but at the same time, this dude kind of have some bullshit kind of vibes to it, so it's like, I don't know. I really don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if it's just like Sunraku at some point during this fight, like the other two get killed or something. I feel like we're approaching something like that, but at the same time, that might be too intense, I don't know. Either way, this was without a doubt a 10 out of 10 episode. The animation, the camera work, just the dramatic zoom-ins, it was so well produced, it's so intense, and this is basically a gamer's wet dream for what we want to play in the world. Slap on a VR headset and physically be able to interact with a game like this. But thankfully, video games are still pretty damn good in our own world right now, but it's hard not to want something like a Shangri-La after you see an episode like this. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're around here, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we have that full live reaction over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, you also get a video shout out. So today we have Fabian, Tychos, and UC Higure, so I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.